Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And a very good morning to you. This is Newsline Live. We're broadcasting from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And actually, I was going to say a jolly good morning to you, but I can't because the weather out there is absolutely disgraceful. What can we do? So you need to be more aware as you step outside today. This morning in Colombo, it's pretty gruesome out there. But here we go. This is Newsline. We're live, and we are in our brand new studio set, which is looking excellent. Thank you very much. And we are going to talk about something that is extremely of critical import. And we could have spoken about the court cases that was going on. We could have spoken about the political scenario. But the one that is actually the most worrying to the public must be the economy. In that context, we have got here today Senior Professor H.D. Karunaratne from the University of Colombo, and specializes in business economics. And he's right here to discuss with us the revision of the immediate outlook for the Sri Lankan government by Fitch Ratings. Very good morning to you, Professor Karunaratne.
Very good morning, Faraz and others.
Thank you very much for being here. You've just come back from Australia, and we'll get straight to the point.
Yes.
The ratings, the revision of the outlook by Fitch Ratings, is that worrying?
Yeah, that's a little bit worry, but there are two sides. One is actual signals giving from the economy. The other one is the predictions. The ratings are usually based on predictions, but actual signs of the economy also very important.
Mm-hmm. And what is the impact this revision will have?
Yeah, I think the issue that we need to concern about the Sri Lankan economy, we know there are two gaps, where the external gap and the internal gap. Mm-hmm. Where the internal gap, there is a serious issue with respect to public expenditure and income. Mm-hmm. The external gap, of course, we know the receiving dollar income or foreign currency and payments of foreign currency. So both sides we are having gaps. Mm-hmm. So how do we fill these gaps are very, very important for Sri Lankan economy.
Right. Now, we, the Ministry of Finance, of course, have taken issue with this, and they say that the recent rating action by Fitch Ratings revised Sri Lanka's outlook to negative has been hastily done without considering the facts on the ground. And they say that such action is untimely and constitutes a rushed judgment or a rush towards that judgment. Do you agree? Is it too hasty?
Yeah, true, because that, you know, yesterday the Department of Census and Statistics released their the output figures, right, where the second quarter of 2019 growth rate was 1.8, yeah, but now it has gone up to 2.7%, right, the economic growth rate. So particularly services sector and the industrial sector growth, yeah, has increased. Only the issue is remaining with the agriculture sector. Right. So that therefore I think now economy is coming up after the Easter attack. Right. There were severe problems to the tourism sector and of course the foreign earning sectors. Right. With the ground scenario, we cannot say that the downgrading the Sri Lankan situation is acceptable at this moment. Right.
Will it, obviously the Sri Lanka's Ministry of Finance, they don't seem to be too concerned, because obviously they are saying that these fiscal measures that they've put in was necessary because the growth figures when President Gotabaya Rajapaksa took office, that they inherited an economy with a very poor growth rate, and that's why they had to do these things to kickstart the economy. Yeah. Is there a rationale in that?
Yeah, there is, because we know that during the last 4.5 years, the economic growth rate has decelerated continuously. When usually economic growth rate decelerate in 2 quarters, we call it economic depression, economic crisis, or it's coming as economic recession. Then, of course, with the higher inflation and other thing, we call economic crisis. So therefore, that last 4.5 years, economic growth rate has been continuously decelerated from about 6.7% to it came about 1.8%. So people understood that Sri Lanka has been facing economic crisis. In an economic crisis situation, the best way, of course, is to cut the taxes. When you cut the taxes, of course, macroeconomic, we know, aggregate demand will increase, particularly the consumption and the savings. Particularly when consumption decrease, we know entire economy going to be a problem. Those who produce products, they can't sell their products. That is the important thing. So when we cut down taxes, particularly on the goods and services, that will lead to increase the tourism industry or the small businesses. They also can perform very well than the higher taxes, because 25% income tax has been very high in Sri Lanka when you compare with the other countries. So that actually we can't rely on only taxes when we are in economic crisis. On the other hand,
what do we have to rely on then?
Yeah, we have to cut down government expenditure.
What do you mean by government expenditure?
Yeah, that we know there are 2 kinds of expenditure. One is recurrent expenditure, the other one is capital expenditure. So both sides you can see Sri Lanka has been continuously increasing government expenditure. So one important aspect is the public sector institutions, loss-making institutions, we have to reform. Without reforming the loss-making public sector institutions, we can't reduce the public sector. So that particularly if we take why these industries are loss-making, these firms are loss-making, because of high salary given to the top people and recruiting more and more people to those areas, particularly you know the areas. Then the issue is that their performance, productivity, targets, management styles, everything should be rearranged. If we are not reforming the loss-making public sector organizations, the government expenditure will continuously increase. The other side that we should not start a program, there are the more subsidies given and more government funds are used unnecessarily. One important aspect we saw that continuously statistics show that Sri Lankan poverty rates has gone down. But meanwhile, we were attempted to increase that particularly the Samurdhi benefits to other people. So I think particularly election targeted policies should not be implemented in government sector.
On Newsline Live, we encourage you to send us your questions. This is, after all, your program. So send us your questions by SMS, please, to 0772 300 305. We are in conversation with Senior Professor H.D. Karunaratne from the University of Colombo. And that's interesting what you say. Election-targeted strategies or promises. So what do you say? You can say those things at election, but when it comes to the real McCoy really doing it, then there's no room to implement those promises. Is that what you mean?
Yes, because the reforms are essential. The issue has been last 4.5 years that they wanted to target people for elections. But that cannot be done practically because of government is having excessive budget gap. So therefore we need to rationalize this government expenditure, and you can see government income has increasing, expenditure also increasing. So without cutting government expenditure, we cannot reform taxes. So that therefore I think it's essential. You see the government construction sector, I always say that when it comes to construction, in individual construction and public sector construction, almost 4 times higher in the public sector construction. So that is because of the process, tender procedures, and everything should be restructured in the Sri Lankan situation.
And why is Why is that different?
Yeah, that different is because gradually everybody feel that the government taking government money is easy and government money is essential.
What do you mean everybody?
Yeah, those who involved there.
Yeah.
So what we want to do that as private people, how do they manage their finance? Similarly, public sector people also should manage their finance.
So what do you say, that a house, if it's built by a government institution, will cost X,
yeah,
and if that same house is contracted out to a
private
sector,
yeah,
it'll cost
1/4.
1/4 of X.
Yeah, you can see the Sri Lankan cost expenditure is the most important thing. We are spending huge amount in public sector.
Right.
This cost structure we have to rationalize in case.
So when the government does it, I'm trying to get my head around this. When a government does something, it's going to cost 4 times more.
Yeah, that's
why is such a big
because of these tender procedures and the commissions and all this.
You mean corruption?
Yeah, corruption also included, but more than that, tender procedures and the
why is it because it's
commissions given?
So commissions officially given?
Yeah, officially or unofficially, both sides.
So unofficially falls into corruption?
Yeah, that's true, that's true. So therefore, the public sector reform is the most important thing.
Right.
So how do we reform public sector is important. And on the other hand, we can see now economy is booming in one sector, which we need to understand, ICT and business consultancy sector, which has been growing 20.8% during the last quarter. So that's one of the good area, but for that we need to focus education reform.
I see. And talking about the ICT sector, President Rajapaksa has appointed a star-studded board to ICTA to drive the digital growth in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
So that sort of reflects what you're saying.
Yeah. Sri Lanka should be the hub of, I think, ICT sector in South Asia.
Right.
Because many people believe that if our education sector reform and move into more advanced vocational and professional education on ICT sector can bring more foreign currency to Sri Lanka.
And the questions have started coming in. Thank you very much. Keep sending them in to 0772 300 305 by SMS only, please. And can you ask your guest how the government is going to run without 1/3 tax income? So, Professor, there you go.
Yeah, the issue is that, as I explained, how to cut the government expenditure. Because in Sri Lankan context, we always think that we need higher taxes to maintain the economy. Not that. The most important thing is whether government spend the same money or more money than the taxes. Keeping with the loss-making larger public sector organizations, we need to get more and more taxes. We need immediately, I think, reform the public sector institutions, loss-making institutions. That is one area. And the other thing that we know, the unnecessary expenses we have to cut down.
I see. In this new political climate, do you think that is something that the President can achieve?
Of course, I think we all have hope. The majority, that's what the election reflected.
Yeah.
The issue is that there are 6 sectors we need to think in Sri Lankan context. One, of course, most important sector is the agriculture sector. How do we reform the agriculture sector? Second is the public sector reforms. How do we do the public sector reforms? Third is the education sector, where we need to perform very well in the education sector. The fourth, we know how do we go promoting exports and entrepreneurship and small businesses. So that is very important. And fifth, of course, tourism sector. We have to see how do we reform our tourism sector and target it for tourism. Now we are getting only 3 million tourists, less than 3 million tourists, but India is getting more than 10 million.
It's a bigger country.
Yeah, bigger country, but that's not the size of the country matters.
Right.
Right. So say the France is getting 80 million. So that's the largest country.
I say to you, it's a different economy.
Yeah, different economy. But the tourism does not depend on the economy size. tourism depends on how we target. In today's world, everything is strategic decision making. If we don't take
so it has to be targeted properly.
Targeted properly.
So it has to be focused, and this focus you can only get with whom?
Yeah.
With your chum who gathered you 1,000 votes, or with a professional?
With the professionals. That's why I always say that the professional involvement in administration is essential in Sri Lankan context.
So all these brothers-in-law, cousins, brothers, little brothers, elder brothers, sisters, and all that.
No more chances. No more chances in Sri Lanka.
If you want the economy to
change. That's what we say.
But some of this, Professor, appears to be, is it optics? Because let me just say something to you. In the statement put out by the Sri Lanka's Ministry of Finance, it says that the impact of the recent policy measures is less significant than portrayed by Fitch due to these reasons. The financial VAT, which is 15% of the VAT revenue, remains unchanged at 15%. The VAT on financial services has not been changed.
Yes.
It's still 15%.
Right.
All right? And so they're pointing that out.
Right.
And the financial VAT accounts for 15% of the VAT revenue anyway.
Yeah.
All right? And that's only 15%,
unchanged. Yes.
Yeah. That's just 15%. But 15% of 100 is quite significant.
Yeah.
The potential loss of VAT revenue from cigarettes and liquor, which almost accounts for 10% of the total VAT, is sort of eliminated by the upward adjustment of the excise duty on cigarettes and liquor, recouping almost 25%. Sure. So it's what, in short, in plain speak, what they're saying is that, look, Fitch are panicking because even though we've reduced the VAT from 15 to 8, in key areas where it matters the most, like the financial VAT, we have maintained that 15%. We've reduced the taxes VAT, yes, but on cigarettes and liquor, but we have increased the import duty and so on. So actually there will be more revenue. So isn't this optics? That's what I'm saying.
No, the issue is that on what we have to reduce the taxes.
Right.
There are two purposes of that. The one is that the day-to-day goods and services people are consuming, if it is so expensive due to VAT, and it should be reduced. The other one that, those who are doing small businesses, if their raw materials, if their the income is taxed, we have to see there. So the basic issue is that, financial sector and what you propose, the liquor and cigarettes, which are not essential things. The financial sector issue is that that's the most profitable sector in Sri Lanka. Financial sector is the most profitable sector in Sri Lanka. Government need income as well. So that the putting the 15% on financial sector, I don't see any problem at this moment. But meanwhile, we need to touch the actual consumption growth and savings growth.
Right.
So therefore, the small businesses can perform better. So the economy will grow with that one. Because financial sector, always you see in Sri Lankan context, we need to restructure because we always have high cost financing in Sri Lanka. Interest rate is about 15%, that should bring into I think 6%. Right. In other countries, interest rate, developed countries, it's interest rate only 2%, 3%.
How long will it take to this team to bring the interest rates down?
Yeah, it's actually we have to do gradually. We can't see the time frame in short run, but over the long run, we need to reduce interest rate to increase the investment.
You spoke earlier about agriculture, and earlier on, prior to the program, you told me that this is a very important sector. What does this government need to do?
Yeah. As I told you, in Sri Lankan context, if we want to have higher growth, the main barrier is the agriculture sector. After independence, the lowest contribution made to agriculture is the last quarter. The 2019 third quarter agriculture sector contribution to the GDP is 6.9%. Earlier it was 7%, 7 something. Now it has come down to 6.9%.
The lowest.
The lowest in the history.
Yeah.
So why mainly
But the growth also was the lowest.
Yeah, growth was last quarter growth was 0.4%.
Right.
So that is very, very low in even among the agriculture countries. The issue in the context of Sri Lanka, we do not understand the role of farmer. I always say that the role of farmer is not only a cultivator. The role of farmer should be entrepreneur. So that's the difference from developed country to Sri Lanka, or the agriculture performing country to Sri Lanka, because farmer believes that only the cultivation is his job. Beyond that, the value addition, the collective marketing and collective actions like cooperatives, no other things. So therefore, there should be networking, education, training programs, and agriculture is the most essential sector for Sri Lanka. And we have land, we have water, we have all the environmental good conditions, but still we are importing many agricultural goods from other country. And while all majority are shifting to industry and services, agriculture should be the most profitable sector.
Right.
To be the most profitable sector, we need training, planning, particularly planning in agriculture.
Which means
because
we need education.
you can see again that how these markets going on these days, vegetable market, rice market, and high prices. Because seasonally varied output always vary with the season. So there should be proper mechanism, system to develop these things.
But don't you need education?
Of course, the education is the essential part. I think the agricultural faculties in universities must have a bigger role here, and agriculture researchers must have a bigger role here. So the education sector is very important, because we need to concern that we are going to produce people for the global, not for Sri Lanka. This is very important.
Professor, in simple terms, we've got various questions, most of them about the same sort of thing, which is that the loss of revenue to the government with these new sort of policies, or shall we call it a strategy, is 700 billion. That's the shortfall, 700 billion rupees. And so many people are asking, where can you recover that 700 billion from? In simple terms, can you tell the people how the government will balance the books?
Yeah, that's what I always emphasize, that we need to think in financially literate manner. With the income coming down, what we should do is we should reduce the expenditure. So while keeping a loss-making big institutions, or while paying huge amount of money to public sector loss-making institutions, we can't reduce taxes. Why we reduce the taxes, or why we should reduce the taxes? Because public sector reform is essential. On the other hand, the cut down of government expenditure is essential. Keeping same government expenditure, you can't cut down the taxes. But if you reduce these wastages, corruptions, commissions, and particularly public sector loss-making institutions, I think we can go in future, because we are increasing day by day, every day, government expenses. Why can't we cut down? So we have to think in cost-wise rather than revenue-wise. Every people trying to match the income with the existing expenditure.
Yeah. You talk of cost-wise and revenue-wise. You've missed out one, political-wise. Because political-wise, for example, I don't know what the new chairman of Sri Lankan Airlines is going to do, but he, Ashok Pattarage, has inherited an airline which is top-heavy. They've got, if you compare the numbers that is employed by Sri Lankan Airlines and compare that with the global average for a traditional airline, you will find that per passenger or per aircraft, Sri Lankan Airlines has got much more staff than the others. So how do you, but those are politically driven.
Yeah, that's the issue, that if we are going to continue this, we cannot cut the taxes. But why we cut the taxes, I think assuming the government sector reforms are essential. we need to go for productivity-oriented public sector. Keeping a white elephant, we can't reduce taxes. But if we are reforming public sector, we can go.
So basically, the focus must be on
government expenditure.
Government expenditure.
Government expenditure.
How do you mix that with politics, Professor?
Yeah, it's a little bit
the
difficult.
The reason I ask you that
yeah.
is because, as I said, ordinarily, I suppose, today we could have, on this program, we could have spoken about President Trump, we could have spoken about Champika Ranawaka, partly Champika Ranawaka's matter, and we could also lamented the progress on the bond scam.
Yes.
And when we are talking about interest rates, and they're so high, we must remember that in 2015 they increased the interest rates artificially for no other reason than to make a quick buck.
Sure.
Right, at the cost of people.
Sure.
So how do you, will this government have time? Will they be able to balance this sharp focus on the economy as opposed to the rest, like Partali and
the most important thing we all have to understand, particularly political parties in this country, must understand that giving employment opportunities in public sector, increasing salaries of public sector people will not provide votes for next election. Will not provide votes. I think it has proven in 2015 or even the last election, because election-oriented public expenditure people don't like in this country. That must be understood, I think, everybody. The political parties still thinking, if they are thinking that we can spend government money to win the election, I don't think it will work. And giving job opportunities will not work. They will give the job opportunity. After getting job, they are giving vote to other opposite side.
Okay.
So that they have to understand.
Right.
I think that's why we need to. I think we need to reform political parties' view in this country.
So we need
Still, traditionally, they believe if they give something from public sector, they can get the votes. That era has gone.
That is gone, absolutely.
That era has gone.
Because people are now more focused on delivery?
Delivery and rationalization, and what is happening in Sri Lanka, people are aware. Particularly social media, even news, that everywhere people are talking that where we are going,
But actually, when you say that, on a philosophical note, it's a very Buddhist sort of principle, or a very ecclesiastical principle. Because what you're saying is, look, they believe that if you give a vote, if you give them a job, you get a vote.
Yes.
But actually you're saying that culture is going away now, because what people are doing is they take what is being given, but they vote elsewhere. So in a way, it's what religion talks about. It talks about you take the goodness from somebody and you don't take the bad. And that's what's happening
But
here.
not only religion, but I think the Sri Lankan voter is now educated rather than earlier.
So they're savvy. They take this and say, well, that's good for me.
And the other thing, the media and the social media, all they now, I think during last couple of years, what I see as an economist, the economic matters have started discussing. Now, more economic matters going into public. They know that these loss-making institutes, everybody agree that our public institutes have excess labor, more employed people. Everybody knows these things. So therefore, that just giving some peanuts, I think we can't satisfy people now. So that era has gone.
It has gone, because there is a saying that if you pay peanuts, you will get monkeys. That's the saying.
But that's the saying. But that doesn't going to be here now.
Indeed.
No more here. No more.
A new Sri Lanka.
I don't think. Yeah, new Sri Lanka, the people, because particularly we can see how the younger voters, their behavior. because they don't like irrational expenses. And they want to be government take the rational decisions. And they, of course, we are going in wrong direction if we go like this.
Right.
So therefore, it is a good sign of the economy. The economic matters we have to focus more. As you suggested, I think you did a great job today, starting and always talking on economic matters. We did a research earlier. That is on last 6 months before the elections. Last 6 months we analyzed the news, airline, the all news we analyzed, and we understood that the time we allocated for economic matters, of course, is less, but it is increasing. I think the media has bigger role to communicate with people more economic, business and matters rather than political, philosophical and individual matters. Now, when somebody take into custody or when the judiciary process going in one way, we should not give more priority for that. What we have to give more priority for what is happening in the economy, what is happening into our wallet, what's happening into our day-to-day life. So when you compare with the advanced country media and Sri Lankan media, the difference is we are going behind politicians, we are going behind politics, we are talking nonsense rather than economic and business matters which are important for people for their future planning.
Professor H.D. Karunaratne, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for being on Newsline live. We appreciate your presence. And that's the way it was on Newsline
Thank you
this morning.
Much.
Take care, watch out because the weather's bad, and of course, God bless. And thank you.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.